All right, everybody, welcome to Simply Cyber Live, bringing cybersecurity industry experts on to share best practices, tips, and their experiences with you. We're here every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For those of you with us, thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Gerald Ozier, and over the next hour, we'll be talking with Ari and Roy Halevi from Intezer about the modern SOC analyst workflow. SOC analyst skills are widely talked about, but as technologies advance and threat actors have evolved, so have the workflows for the SOC analyst. So if you're interested in being a SOC analyst, definitely want to chime in. If you are a SOC analyst, you want to make sure that you got those modern techniques under your belt, right? I hope you're pumped to hear more about the topic. So you're encouraged to ask questions and engage via chat. You guys know this. I love the Simply Cyber community. You guys are the ones that make the Simply Cyber live experience amazing. Now, a couple protocols for the questions. First off, start all the questions with a capital Q. It makes it easy for me to know that you're talking to me and not to chat, so I can, pull those. And also, I'll make every effort to get to your question, so no need to submit it more than once, right? Spamming your question isn't going to get me to ask it any faster, and it's annoying, right? So excessive spamming will not be tolerated for the good of the group. Be sure to connect with me and many members of the Simply Cyber community within the Simply Cyber Discord server. You can hit ! Discord in chat, and Nightbot will gladly tell you exactly how to join. Okay, so enough with the intro. Let's get into the show. All right, Ari and Roy, thanks for being here, guys. Really enjoy the Intezer product. Obviously, I've been talking about it on the show for quite a while. Thank you for taking time from your busy schedules to talk with us. So just to kind of set the stage, if you will, for people who may not be familiar with you or with Intezer, Roy, if you could just introduce yourself and give us a little bit of a background so we understand your perspective.
Sure. So my name is Roy, and I'm the CTO and one of the co-founders here at Intezer. I'm in charge of the product roadmap and strategy and execution, and I work closely with Ari here, who will present himself in a second. And of course, I'm also a Simply Cyber fan. We also love your content as well, Jerry. So thank you so much for doing all of this for the security industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. I love the Simply Cyber community. Ari, can you give us a little bit of background on you?
Sure. So my name is Ari. I'm the VP of Research here at Intezer. I run the research team. I used to be a security researcher and the head of the IDF CERT team, which is the incident response team of the IDF. So my team and I had to take care of all of the nation-state attack who targeted the IDF. And as you can imagine, we had a lot of things to do. And for the past 6 years, I've been at Intezer.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting. We could do a whole show around just that topic. So maybe something to dig into later. So, but the name of this show is the Modern SOC Workflow. And we talk about SOC analyst life and SOC analyst tooling on the channel. But Roy, on your perspective, can you give us kind of a high-level overview for those who don't work as SOC analysts in today's day? What is the SOC workflow currently look like?
Yes. So, and this is maybe it's my observation. Today we are working with a lot of SOC teams and incident response teams. So we know what they're going through, and I can tell you it's really different from different companies, and it's probably going to be very different 6 months or a year from now, right? So it's constantly evolving. But I think that what we see today, in comparison to a few years ago, is that a few years ago there was a problem around getting like detection signals. So there wasn't enough telemetry. There wasn't enough detections to detect stuff, and this was like the number one challenge to implement and get these systems running and build the right detections and onboard the right systems and so on. Today, I think we are in an era where, like, the bottleneck went to the later stage, and now SOC teams feel like they are overwhelmed with detection signals. And of course, we want to build great detection as an industry, and that means that there is also clear detections, right? Stuff that you know for sure. Okay, this is totally bad. Like, for example, I find a hash of a malware, of a known malware. This is definitely bad. But if I only use this technique, I'm going to very limiting myself, my detection capabilities. And therefore, we are going towards more sophisticated and advanced, but also more soft type of detections, like behaviors and anomalies and other techniques that also produce some noise. And then what happens is, and I think this is the number one challenge with the SOC teams that we see today, is that they're just overwhelmed with this amount of detections. It's very hard to triage, to differentiate the right ones, the ones that actually possess risk to the organization, to the ones that should be ignored or are like in a very low priority. And prioritizing is the one that actually confirmed. And then when you confirm an incident, you need to go to resolve it, to respond to it. So that's another challenge that we see people really struggling with. It also, in terms of detection, but the attack surface is so huge, right? Like it's not only Windows machine anymore. It's so many type of infrastructure in the cloud, on premises, and Linux and containers, and we see a lot of Macs used in a lot of enterprise organizations, like really large enterprise organizations. So as a SOC analyst, you need to learn and be on top of so many technologies. So it's so hard to really do that. For if you go like one level higher in hierarchy to the ones that leads these SOC teams and maybe even the CISO in some organization, for them, the problem is around the resources. So it's very hard to hire the right people and make sure they are skilled enough with all of this technology. And recently, we also see that it's very hard to retain these people. They get fatigue, not just the alert fatigue, but they get fatigue from the work, from this work that they do in general. It's very hard, and it can be very frustrating sometimes. So we see people jumping between jobs all the time, and this is like a critical challenge for the security leaders in such enterprises that we are working with.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot there. I mean, we're talking about the Great Resignation, about how the talent gap, if you will, in the industry. How there's more people who need qualified candidates or businesses needing qualified candidates versus candidates with the skills to be able to put that in there. One of the things you pointed out, Roy, that I found really interesting and really explains kind of what's happening from an evolution of our industry perspective is how there was a lack of telemetry, whatever, a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever. And people were clamoring, I need to know what's going on. Give me that telemetry. So now here's fistfuls of telemetry, and you end up getting overwhelmed. So I guess let's talk about that for a second. From a SOC analyst perspective, if you get a ton of telemetry, there is the reality of false positives, right? So where it looks like it's something bad, but it's actually not. And analysts are spending cycles, spending time, spending energy on those false positives. So how has, I guess, how do we address, the first part of the workflow, which is identifying false positives so you're not spending time on them and actually focusing on true positives?
Yeah. So that's a very big challenge that I think yet as a security industry we aren't there yet, right? Like there's still this fatigue. We still haven't managed to do this automatically, and I think also one of the things that we should talk about is that false positives are part of good security. So if you have a system that should report to you, should signal you when something behaves out of the ordinary, because it's suspicious. Yes, sometimes it will flag maybe a legitimate software that does that, but this security system did the right thing, flagging you about suspicious behavior, about abnormal behavior. So it's not a problem that we can just tick a box and then it disappears, because we need layers of detections, and some of these layers are going to produce some what we call false positives, not because they are they're signaling the right thing, like this software behaves strange. It's just that it's not a malware or another threat that really poses risk to the organization. So I think what we learned from our experience in the Israeli military around responding and to alerts is that the toolset that you're using to generate signals can be different from the toolset that you use to investigate them. For example, you can report on a software that behaves strangely, but then when you go to it, and let's say that you put yourself in the mindset of someone in the government, consider that this is a potential nation-state attack, you would get this suspicious software to a reverse engineer to look into it and tell you exactly what's going on there, because that might be an APT, and if so, this is like a true risk. So the kind of technology that generated the signal is very different than the ones that the reverse engineer will go and dive deep into. So for me, this is maybe a long way to say that I think that in order to deal with the false positive problem, we need to stack additional type of methods and technologies to do the investigation type of things. So now that I got this initial signal, now let's put additional technologies and additional methods into scanning everything that we can to learn more about this thing, because the initial signal is not where it should end. So I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. And I do appreciate that you're saying false positives are not necessarily a bad thing, right? I feel like I almost painted it as like, there's never a good time. You want to eliminate all false positives. But to your point, the system doesn't know what good behavior and bad behavior is. And we could get into detection engineering later on, because that's really what you need to do in order to tune your tooling. But, so dealing with this, how are tools in the environment, and I know Intezer is doing something around this, how are product trying to help SOC analysts, automate things that remove false positives or alert fatigue? Like, how can we address this false positive in a way that makes sense?
Yeah, so I can share how we at Intezer approach it, and we really believe that the code and the software itself is the core thing, is the ground truth. So we're really focusing on helping analysts understand that when they investigate it, and also understand it automatically. So our technology really dives into, let's say we flagged a detection system flagged the suspicious software. We'll dive into this code that we see inside, and we'll really go to the assembly level and behavior level and everything that we see inside to give you insights about it. Maybe I can show a quick example that can demonstrate it.
Yeah, that would be useful. And while you're pulling that up, I mean, we actually, are having Dr. Josh Stroshine on the channel, or we just had a couple weeks ago. And, digging into assembly is not a skill that everyone has, right? Like you just mentioned that it's hard to staff a SOC with just people who can respond to incidents, let alone have the skill to properly digest a binary and do something, useful with it. So what are we looking at here, Roy?
Yeah, so this is, we are partnering with a lot of other technologies and other solutions. So here we partner with SentinelOne, with their EDR product. So what you see here is maybe the screen that a SOC analyst can wake up to in the morning when they change shift. There are
Roy, if I can really, so we are looking at a SentinelOne EDR solution interface, right? So this is what a SOC may see in a SentinelOne environment. Okay, I just wanted to set. Yep.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying that, Ari. Thank you. But yes, this is SentinelOne dashboard. Nothing yet related to Intezer, and these are attacks or potential attacks that the SentinelOne technology flagged. You can see here like the reason why these things got flagged. And let me jump into a specific alert in this example. So let me dive into this one.
Can you zoom in just a little bit, Roy, please?
Yeah, of course. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Great. So what you see here is that the Sentinel-1 flagged a behavior-based signal. And if you look here on the right side, let me go to the threat indicators, you can see that this program is accessing sensitive information, register itself as a service. Like these are things that can that some malware do. And this can be suspicious. So in this case, the DDR did what it should have done. Like this is a new thing in my environment, and they flagged around this specific thing. But in our case, what you see here is actually what happened automatically. In our case, when the analysts get to this incident, they get it after it was automatically enriched with Intezer data. And when we say enriched, basically what happened is that Intezer automatically looked at this alert, extracted all the relevant artifacts. In this case, it was a file, analyzed it, and marked this file as benign, as trusted, and mentioned that this is probably jump cloud, a legitimate software. And we can from here dive into the report of Intezer and really see all the code that was extracted. And in this case, let's take a look at one of these, the code that was extracted, one of these files, and you can see clearly, and this is where Intezer really does the magic around like getting into the code, matching all this code against our database, against our global database that contains benign software, legitimate software, and also threats and malware and any kind of things that you can think about. And we say, listen, this is actually, this is jump cloud. Like we recognize this code. It was seen in other jump cloud applications. So in this case, it's much easier now for the analyst to really maybe close this alert, reduce the priority, and jump into the next one. And this is dramatically different from when we confirm an alert. So all of these things happen automatically. And imagine that an analyst would get into this screen without this context. It can take much longer for them to make a decision. And just as a comparison, I would like to show what maybe a confirmed incident would look like. Mm-hmm. So this is pretty similar. Like you get the classification with the malware, and then Intezer says, "Listen, we confirm this is not just a malware. This is NJ-RAT, and this is some information about it." And now the analyst can dive in into this. Maybe this was a file that we identified over a phishing email or something that we found in one of the machines. And now they can dive in. They can learn about this type of threats and respond to it properly. Get all the relevant information around the TTPs that was used, the IoCs, the behavior. And maybe Ari can show some more advanced features here. But the thing here is that the analyst can really, the SOC team as a team can really accelerate and automate a lot of this analysis process using such technology because we are focusing on all the things that reuse code, reuse techniques, reuse behavior, reuse infrastructure, as a way to detect and learn more about these threats. I covered a lot here. So
yeah, no, it's good. It's good though. You know, I mean, this is part of the reason why I personally use Intezer. I know you guys have a ton of functionality and a ton of capability that I'm not personally taking advantage of, but I'm also not a SOC analyst. But the ability to use what you guys call genes, which is essentially like bits of assembly, it takes the analysis from, or the indicators of compromise from the bottom of David Bianco's pyramid of pain to the top, which is where we really want to be. And for me, that's something that I really appreciate, and frankly, why I use the product. So you showed some Sentinel-1 integration, and I kind of want to talk about, you know, the modern SOC. You know, like SOAR was supposed to be like the savior, right? The security orchestration, automation, remediation. I believe that's what the SOAR acronym stands for. It was taking you from manually doing things to automatically doing things based on conditions and stuff like that. We just saw SentinelOne integrating with Intezer. Roy, as far as integrations go, is integration in the current modern SOC like legit, or is it like the 2022 buzzword of the industry?
Wow. So I think that it really depends, because it's definitely a buzzword, but you can use it to your advantage. And I think that it's like automation is a critical part. Like, you cannot operate an enterprise with the threats that you have today and with the detection system that you have today without doing any automation. That would be irresponsible. And this is, I think, also one of the reasons that people are losing analysts that jump from job to job, because they are doing some repeatable work. So I think that like looking at automation as a whole is very important, and identify where you can really automate and reduce this alert fatigue. When it comes to automation tools like SOAR, they are also a critical component. Because they help you create these workflows, these automated workflows of things that happen once this happened. So once you get a suspicious phishing email, you want to do this step and then that step, and then you can automate this. So this is definitely one critical component of let's call it the modern SOC. But it cannot be done by itself. I think that we work with a lot of organizations that are having a lot of challenges implementing their SOARs properly. This is a challenge by itself. Like, it's important, but this is actually requires skills and requires a specific personnel to help you and do this sort of things. So it's not like a magic that you can just do and now you don't need so much analysts. No, I think we're in an era today where it's actually the opposite. If you want to really implement properly SOAR, you need more people that can help you with that. And so it's not a magic. And the other thing around automation and SOAR is a critical component that helps you automating the workflows. So once this happens, do this and integrate with other solutions. But there's the part of making actual decisions. So you cannot do that with just automations. You need to come up with technologies that help you really doing the investigation and doing threat intelligence and doing these sort of things that are critical to making decisions. So I think this is where Intezer comes in and helps you with the analysis of, for example, a suspicious file, a suspicious URL, a suspicious endpoint, and so on. And you want to connect it with other parts of your security stack using maybe a SOAR. One of the reasons I showed like the one-to-one integration with SentinelOne, and we have it with other EDRs and also with other systems. The reason that we also build, we have like integrations with all the leading SOARs and even the open source ones. But the reason we are also doing a one-to-one integration with tools like SentinelOne, but also others, is that first of all, we don't always see a well-implemented SOAR with the organizations that we work with, and therefore we want to allow them to integrate without waiting for the SOAR implementation project that can take sometimes years. So this is one thing, and the other thing is that we want to simplify the processes. And I think like this is an integration that you can just in a click of a button set it up, and it already have this automation going on without going through a SOAR tool. But looking forward, I think it's any automation tool is a key ingredient in a modern SOC that want to be well functioning.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely the key takeaway for chat is automation allows SOC analysts to move faster. It doesn't replace SOC analysts, right? I mean, that's the key takeaway. Yeah. And Ari, don't worry, I've got a host of questions for you. Don't think I'm ignoring you down there.
No, I'm waiting for my time patiently.
Yes, exactly. So, Roy, one final question before I turn the grill on Ari. So we've got these alerts coming in. We're enriching it. in the modern SOC, how are analysts supposed to, or what are we seeing as far as how you prioritize those alerts? Like, okay, like they are true. So now what? Like they can't all be equal. So what are people doing for prioritization?
Yes. So I'll start with maybe the simplest things, and then I let Ari talk about more advanced things because I think he can really put some insights there. But when it comes to prioritization, I think you should have what we try to provide when we confirm an alert. We try to tell you what stands behind it. So if you see everything like a generic malware, generic Trojan, it doesn't tell you much. But when you dive into the code, what we try to provide is classification, or in certain cases even attribution, if you talk about really sophisticated cases. And this can really help you differentiate the adware or maybe even a Bitcoin wallet that gets flagged from something that is a ransomware, an info stealer, maybe an espionage operation. And if you think about like large enterprises that have a lot of cyber risks around them and maybe get targeted, I think these are the things that worries them the most. So it's not the like that can be like the usual spread of malware over the internet, right? That can be blocked, but the more sophisticated things are the one that worries them. So being able to differentiate between the spectrum of bad, I think it's also a key ingredient, especially if you want to take your SOC operations to the next level. Ari, do you want to add anything about this subject?
No, I very much agree, Roy. I think it's not just a world of good or bad, but there are shades of bad, and you want to know as an organization which alert you should prioritize first and address, even once you found the let's call it the needle between the haystack of alerts that you have. You want to know, you probably have multiple needles, and you want to know where to spend your resources on. And I must say, I used to be a reverse engineer, and for me, even once I have a file that I need to investigate and see, I know that it's malicious. Let's assume that I've detected malicious activity in it. Still, determine if this file is an APT or just a commodity RAD that someone took and deployed could take, in best case, I would say hours, right? Maybe even more than that. And you need to react fast, right? You need to know fast or quickly what you're dealing with. Therefore, adding as much context as you can to the alert, including to the file itself, I believe it's the best way to help the analyst make the right decision.
Yeah, and that is something that I have said on the channel before. Like, I'm certainly not your level of reverse engineer, but I know how to do it, and it's a lot of fun. Like ripping malware apart is a lot of fun. It's like a puzzle, but it takes a ton of time. And in all honesty, I'm responsible for protecting an organization, not playing with malware, frankly. So as much as I enjoy doing it, it's more of my own time hobby than being able to do it. So I'm 100% with you right there, Ari. Now, let me ask you, since you are a threat researcher, what is, I guess, what's the current state of the threat landscape, or how has it evolved in like the last 6 months? Like what's the modern SOC looking at right now?
Wow, that's a very wide question. I would say recently, I cannot say that it happens in the past 6 months, but in the past, I would say a year or two, we've seen a lot of threats written in Golang, probably due to the fact that attackers are now aiming not only for Windows platform, but other platforms as well, Linux and so on, with all the cloud shifting. And Go is the best investment for them because, they write it once and you get different payloads for all platforms. We also see Mac OS as a new platform that attackers are aiming for. Actually, recently we've just discovered a new threat called SysJoker, which is an APT. It's basically a backdoor. This one is written in C++, but it has versions for all operating systems, both Windows, Linux and Mac, the Linux and Mac samples variants were completely undetected. So you see that it's even easy for the attackers to write the malware that gets undetected and under the radar for those platforms, since they're so they're not mature enough in terms of security solutions.
Yeah, I saw the blog post that Intezer put out about SysJoker. So with SysJoker, I guess it was, kind of the promise of Java, right? Write once, run anywhere kind of thing. Were you seeing it, or were you detecting SysJoker because of those TTPs or because of those genes being reused? You said it went undetected, but was it behavior based, or was it because of code reuse that you guys were able to discover it and share with the community?
So actually, in this specific case, we've detected it since we took care of the incident, a live incident in one of our customers that got attacked by SysJoker. But overall, in our reputation, we've detected the Russian APTs, North Korean APTs, Chinese, and so on. The code reuse is the key because attackers spend time, in changing this network IoCs that they have, or changing or hiding the string, or pack the sample that they have so it would be undetected by traditional security products. But the code is being reused all the time, or most of the time, I would say. And if not, and we've seen something written from scratch, this is also suspicious for itself. How many times do you see in an organization a code that doesn't look like anything else that exists in your network, right? This could be a bit off and requires further investigation. So to your question, yeah, we've seen not only code reuse in most cases, but also string reuse, and we've detected reuse of IoCs and TTPs and network artifacts. And as Roy mentioned at the beginning, we believe in reuse, right? We started with code reuse, and then we expanded this for also string reuse and basically artifacts reuse all the time.
I think.
Yeah, go ahead, Roy.
Yeah, just to add on top of what Ari mentioned about the SysJoker incident, I think what was really clear in that case is that was the code that we saw there was not matching into any of the benign software that we have in our database. So we just saw this very strange binary with a lot of code that was never seen before. This was like highly suspicious to see, because it's not something that you see irregularly in production environments with the clients that we are working with. It's very uncommon. So this was like really flagged itself for us. Okay, this is definitely a software that we should look into. And once we confirmed that this was actually a new type of attack, the reason that it wasn't detected. And I think that the first variant that we found was the Linux one. So it was really completely undetected. We had no idea about it prior to monitoring it in the wild. Once we identified it and confirmed this is actually an attack and started looking into this type of threat, we were able, using, as Ari mentioned, using the reuse to identify the other variants, because we were actually looking at the breach into a Linux environment. And once we added this type of artifacts and genes into our database, we were able to then spread the detection into other platforms and hunt for new variants in the wild. So yes, in this case, you can see the attacker reusing code and strings and techniques between different platforms. And we were actually, you can imagine, quite surprised when we saw that this malware is actually targeting multiple OSs, because we were managing a specific incident into a specific OS. So, but that was like the flow of this incident response.
Yeah, I appreciate that you guys were letting the data drive you and do the talking, instead of having an assumption and using the data to reinforce your assumption, right? And then just broadcasting that, like, oh, we found a Linux variant, let's move on. So, I guess one of the things that we've been talking about with the modern SOC, we've been talking a lot about detect and responding to it. But the modern SOC has this capability, which we lovingly call threat hunting. And that definitely is, I don't know if it's an advanced skill per se, or if junior analysts can do threat hunting, but as far as the operation of threat hunting goes and the workflows of threat hunting in the modern SOC, Ari, can you talk about, when you have a detection, a true positive or a near miss, potentially, how can analysts leverage that and start executing threat hunting in their environment?
That's a great question. So traditionally, threat hunting was being done by searching for a specific hash in your organization once you know it's malicious, or in the more advanced way, if you have a DNS that you want to search for in your logs. But now we've seen a trend of detection engineering, which is basically taking the detection and the hunting operations to a whole new level. And maybe I can share my screen quickly and show you how we do it at the research team at Intezer, and how we provide value for it in our product.
Maybe in the meanwhile, I'll mention around like detection engineering. If we talked before about all this telemetry that SOC teams currently have in their hands, I think when we look at threat hunting and detection engineering, we see this telemetry not as an overwhelming pile of alerts, and events, but as an opportunity to do detection. And I think that this is something. If we talked about SOC teams a few years ago and today, I think this is an advantage, an opportunity that SOC teams and security teams in general have today that they didn't have in the past. So this pile of telemetry also represents great opportunity to build detections and hunt for threats.
Great. So let me show you quickly how that looks like. This is an analysis of an Excel file at Intezer Analyze. We see that the file is an Excel file, and after executing it, we've detected it as form book. The payload in memory is a form book. Now, besides the detecting reuse with related samples that you could see of other payloads of form book that exist in our platform, and string reuse to other payloads of form book, you could also get TTPs and even network IoCs from the behavioral report. But there's a limit of what you can do with the behavioral report in terms of hunting. And what we want to give the analyst more tools to detect and hunt. As Roy said, we did all the telemetry that exists in all the logs and data feeds that they have. Therefore, we've created this detect and hunt screen, which is basically detection opportunities based on this one is based on the behavior. And you could see here artifacts and where we've seen those artifacts in the past. So for example, we have this process that opens CMD and name.exe. This is suspicious. We've seen it in form book in the past. And now you can go and hunt for this specific flow, this specific process tree in your feeds, just to see if you have more infections. Now, if traditionally you would search for the hash, for attackers, it's quite easy to change it, right? They just need to flip one byte and that's it. But now, once we're taking into account more sophisticated, and here's the pyramid of pain, Gerald, that you mentioned before. So we could choose exactly what type of thing we want to base our detection on. It's up to us and based on the logs that we have. But once you take it to this new level, you get much more accurate detection and wider detection, which is not based on traditional indicators like hash or network IoCs, which exist here as well, in case you still want to do it. And I encourage one to do it. It is important. But if you want to take it to the next level, that's the right way to do it. And I can tell you personally from my experience that in the research team, we use that in order to detect what is unique and like what is unique for this specific malware threat or this specific family. And based on that, it's not only we're not limiting ourselves to a hash-based hunting process, right? Mm-hmm. We get much more coverage, and we've detected some cool things that we're working on actually at the moment using this new method.
Yeah, and you might not be able to see it in the screen share if you're on mobile, but I see at the top it says Sigma. So you guys have the capability to output Sigma rules for integration?
Yeah, so basically you could generate a Sigma rule based on the relevant the detection ops that you want. We can recommend on ones that we believe would be ideal for you for this specific threat, or you could choose the Sigma rule, the opportunities that you want to base your Sigma rules on. This will be available soon. But even at the moment, if you believe and you've detected that this process tree is something that you want to base your detection on, based on the platform and the fact that you're familiar with your network well, you could even right now create a Sigma rule by yourself manually, but soon you'll be able to do it automatically and deploy it. Based on that, you could detect much better than just search for the hash in your organization.
Yeah, definitely going north in the pyramid of pain, which is where you want to be. One quick question that occurred to me, Ari, like you were able to filter just on the top of the pyramid, right? Like, again, I'm more of a CISO than a SOC analyst, right? I do some blue, but I dabble. Why would you not want to just do all of the entire pyramid? Why would you want to just do the top? I mean, I know it's more effective, but why? Like, what's the disadvantage of the whole thing?
I don't think you want to do just the top. I prefer to start from the top, just to make sure that the detection is the most effective one that I could create. But sometimes you don't have detection of at the top of the pyramid, so you have to go down and down. It also depends on how many resources you have, right? If you could cover the full pyramid, like why not? But if not, then you should start at the top of the pyramid, just to make sure that you're focusing on what's important and available for you.
Okay, that sounds good. We're almost done with this part right here. Roy, do you want to provide some final thoughts before we jump into the live and do Q&A with everybody?
Sure. So first of all, I hope that it was meaningful and helpful for all the folks here. And definitely, if there's anything that I want you to get out of this is that try to automate triage, try to enrich things before an analyst get a look into an incident. That can dramatically increase the efficiency of the SOC. And we are always happy to connect with the security professionals. So we have our free edition where people can go register and start use the platform for free. It has 50 file scans a month, and you can start with that. And of course, if some of you are interested in some of the enterprise features, the ones that Ari showed, we'd be happy to connect. You can book some time with us in our website, and we are always looking forward to getting feedback and working with other security professionals. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Roy, Ari. All right, guys, let's hop into live chat. I got your questions all queued up. We're going to dig in and get those questions answered. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
All right, Roy, how you doing, man? That was great. I really, really appreciate all that you do in coming on the show and talking about this with everybody. We got a lot of questions queued up in chat here. One easy softball for you right out the gates. There was a question about the integrations. We saw SentinelOne. You talked about some other ones. What's the deal with what EDR platforms are currently going to be supported in this solution?
Great. So also thank you, Jerry. It was really nice to have this discussion with you, and I'm happy to take all these questions. So the one-to-one integrations we have with EDRs are with SentinelOne, CrowdStrike. We are now building some additional ones, including Microsoft Defender 365, so stay tuned. And you can also find all of the integrations that Intezer have in our from our product. You have like the integration in the menu, and you can click on it and see like all the integration with SOAR tools, analysis tools, and so on. So we really encourage that. Of course, we also have an open API, so we see analysts building like their own custom integrations and so on. So you can basically integrate with anything you want using this API. But when it comes to official integrations, the ones that you can find in our product, you just click on integrations and this is it.
Nice. Easy peasy. So Tom Pike, Tom, Love seeing you in chat. Thanks for all the help you do with Simply Cyber. How important is MITRE ATT&CK framework for SOC analyst roles?
Good. So I think you have some thought about this as well, Jerry. But I think what we see is that it's like the way that analysts and security professionals communicate with each other. So I think it's very important to learn about the concept. It's very hard to know all of the techniques and all of the tactics. But I think to understand like the concept and being able to communicate it, this is critical part. So, for example, we learned that SOC teams, when they communicate with threat intelligence teams, and when threat intelligence teams communicate back to SOC and IR teams, they are really doing it with this MITRE ATT&CK framework in mind, because it's a great way to communicate. And it's also a language that a lot of security products speak. So you can, for example, from Intezer, you can generate a report with all the MITRE ATT&CK techniques that was observed. And that's also true for many other products. So I think it's a very good framework to become familiar with and use on a daily basis.
Yeah, sorry, Tom. I took your question now when I was screwing with the banners. Nathan Bolin asked a similar question. I am going to get my thoughts right now on MITRE ATT&CK. It's just Nathan's question kind of also parlays into the value of MITRE ATT&CK for those SOC analysts. So Nathan follows up on top of Tom. What are some ways to use MITRE in your threat intelligence with threat hunting? And can this be done with SIM and EDR? So real quick, guys, I really strongly believe that MITRE ATT&CK was an incredible movement forward for our industry. Essentially, what you have done is you've put your arms around an entire taxonomy of what threat actors can do, right? There's no more magic. There's no more mystery. It's going to fall into the framework. So by doing that, we at least have our arms around it, right? We may not, worms and sand and stuff might sip through, but we got our arms around it. Now, using it with threat intelligence, threat hunting, right? So Roy talked about it. And again, I use the Intezer product. So when I analyze, a binary or something like that, if it is malicious, it'll show you kind of where it maps onto the framework. This is advantageous because you just found an artifact in your environment. For me, the first thing I'm thinking of is, there's twofold, right? For me, I'm like, okay, this is communicating out. Let's look in the SIM to see if there's any other network communication out to that IP from other hosts, indicating perhaps that there's other compromises within the environment, right? Because sometimes malware gets dropped in multiple places, and one piece of malware, that catches by the EDR, but another piece doesn't because it's dormant or it's got different kind of look and feel to it, but it's talking to the same C2 infrastructure, right? So using the SIM to see that stuff is definitely useful. Now, final thing I'll say, if you're going to take it to the next step, when you start mapping TTPs to actual not APTs, but to threat actor groups, and you're seeing like in Intezer or in anywhere, like these are the mappings to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Like, holy crap, this is mapping to APT 41. Now, that's a major concern. Let's go threat hunting for the other things that APT 41 maps to in the framework. You know what I mean? It gives you that visibility on what to go hunt for versus just trying to hunt for the entire framework. Okay, I did get a little spicy. I did flip out, but that's totally cool. I love this field, and that's what I do, Roy. Welcome to Simply Cyber, where I flip out. So this wasn't a question, but I thought it was a really good discussion point. Okay. So Burke says, good point when we were talking about code reuse. Would you say code reuse is a type of TTP? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that when it comes to attackers' technique, code reuse is more focused about the tool set that they are using. So they build their tools, their malware, their arsenal of tools that they use for attacking. And those tools are generating and doing all of these activities that can be mapped to specific techniques. So I think essentially the code can be, and we see it, malware can do different type of techniques and operate in different ways. And attackers usually reuse code to not reinvent the wheel. It's good for them as well. However, recently MITRE released what they call the MITRE Defend matrix, which is a set of techniques that can be used to actually defend against threat. And one of the techniques talks about file content and specifically malware content. So that's definitely a very good way to look into the code and find similarities and patterns so you can detect the malware.
Yeah, I definitely think of it as a TTP. You can't, I mean, commodity malware is going to be commodity malware, but the sophisticated developed stuff is going to have the developer, the human who was writing it, like kind of their way of solving problems. If you've ever written computer code, you can solve the same, find this string inside this other string problem 50 different ways, right? It's not like there's one way to solve it. So another question from my name, will there be a non-enterprise edition? I'd like to say definitely. Roy, you can comment on this, but I use the non-enterprise edition. I've dabbled with the enterprise edition, but yeah, I love using the non-enterprise one. Can you speak to this?
Sure. So yeah, there is a non-enterprise edition. It's free. You get 50 scans a month. You can scan files and get all of this stuff that we showed in the demo. At least some of them. The enterprise features include more scans, better privacy, and some more advanced capabilities. But there's definitely a free edition, and we encourage everybody to use it.
Yeah, thank you. A question that I had, someone actually texted it to me. So I don't know if they had to run and they're going to watch it on replay. But so is the solution, like, is it a sandbox, or how's it different than a sandbox? That part's a little confusing. Oh, did we lose you, Roy? Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you are, Roy. I think we lost you for a split second there.
When they refer to
Oh, there you are. There you are, Roy.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it's a little bumpy. It's a little bumpy. Let's see.
Yeah, perfect time to have network.
Hey, maybe drop video
issues,
just to free up some bandwidth and do audio only. Save those precious packets for audio data.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you perfectly, Roy. Can you talk? The question was around whether or not is there a sandbox? Is it not a sandbox? What's the difference?
Great.
Oh,
and
no.
Observed. No.
Yeah, you're popping in and out. Let's give it one more shot, and then maybe it's the question. I'll ask you a different question.
Sorry, can you hear me now, Jerry? Let's try.
Yes.
Great. So usually when people refer to a sandbox, they talk about an environment where they can execute a malware, a potential malware, and see how it interacts, observe its behavior. So this is one capability that you get from Intezer. But on top of this sandboxing capability, we also look inside the code itself and compare it against a massive database of benign software, legitimate software, as well as malware and threats that we observed and collect. So you get, in addition to like the standard sandboxing, dynamic execution, and analysis, you get a comparison to this massive database. So we compare both the code, what we really do, like this reverse engineering, and automatically compare the DNA of the malware, and also all of the things that were observed. So the whole concept, we call it genetic analysis for software, because we basically look at all the characteristics that we can just extract and compare it against the database. And I hope that you could hear me clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. You came through crystal clear. I think everything kind of resolved as the last of the video bits went through.
Let me try to get my video back.
All right. We're going to roll the dice. I like it. So there was another question here that was really interesting and worth noting. I don't know how to read this name, so thank you, viewer. What about privacy with Intezer? So you throw a binary up, you throw a file up, Excel macro, whatever. What is the relationship around sensitive data?
Sure. So this is one of the limitations of the free edition. Basically, with the free edition, every sample that you upload is shared with the community. So I wouldn't advise to send stuff that may contain private information. If that's your case, you want to upload stuff that are private and that you're concerned about, I recommend look into our enterprise edition, the paid edition, that you get privacy. With the paid edition, all your files are private, are not shared with anybody else, and you can also remove them at any time. So if you accidentally uploaded something and you even want, although it's not shared with anyone else, you can also remove it from the system, so it can be very private.
Yeah, and that's a fairly common approach in the industry for tooling technologies to have that, because it's a benefit to the community by having that. All right, well, we're just almost at time, Roy. What I always like to do, and I should have told you this before we went live, I always like to give my guest an opportunity to, take the stage, final thoughts, speak your mind. So I'll give that opportunity to you right now as we kind of close out the show. The floor is yours, Roy.
Great. So I would just say that I love being part of an industry where what I do and what my team does is our passion. Our work is our passion. So I always like to get some feedback about our product and about the offering that we provide and the technology. So I would just encourage you all to try it out and contact us and let us know what you think. And that's it. Play around.
Awesome. All right, Roy, let me send you off to the green room. And just so everybody knows, there will be a link. I have to update the show description. I couldn't do it beforehand. There will be a link to the show in the show description that can take you right to the platform, so you can register for the free account and, throw binaries at it and see what happens. All right, Roy, thanks so much. We're going to send you off now. Take care.
Bye, Jerry. Bye, everyone.
All right, guys. So real quick housekeeping things before we call it a day. What am I doing? All this different stuff, guys. If you don't know, I know many of you in chat do know. Every single morning, weekday morning, we are going live with a cybersecurity threat intelligence briefing to really prep you for the day and be able to just move forward as a practitioner and absolutely kick butt. Plus, I'm a bit biased, but I got to tell you, the community in there is strong. There's a lot of great discussion, a lot of great networking going on every single morning. Tomorrow, Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're interested, I hope you can make it. I'm super pumped, and I genuinely love it. And I notice a lot of people in chat tonight are regulars at the First Things First. Also, a new show idea, guys. So it'll be a pilot episode tomorrow. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm doing a show called What's on Your Radar, and it'll be every Friday at 4 p.m. And it's going to be, the panel will be me. I'll be much more talkative than I normally am on Simply Cyber Live. And it's senior practitioners. There'll be 3 or 4 of us, and we'll be talking about what's on our radar right now. Like, what is something that popped off that caused us to go, wait a minute, dig in deep and really want to understand. And the point is, we're going to share what's on, I'll share what's on my radar, and I'll tell you why it's on my radar. I'll tell you what I discovered and why I think it's important. And the gear here is that junior analysts and people trying to break into the industry, but really junior analysts who haven't quite developed the depth of experience to be able to weigh, this thing from this thing and understand the priority or the importance. Like, you can hear senior practitioners and get their thought process on this. And I'm hoping that it's going to be a major value add to the community. And I've got a stable of 20 different senior professionals across the entire industry, in different regions too, frankly, who have agreed to come on as rotating panelists. So it'll be me and Eric Taylor always, or most of the time, and then a rotating panelist. I think tomorrow we're going to have Steve Cardinal from Soteria. He's a vCISO, a lot of experience. and he'll be our rotating seat tomorrow. So again, come check it out. It's a pilot episode, so who knows what's going to happen. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. Guys, I really, really enjoy and appreciate all of you. I thought your questions were fantastic. I thought chat was really good. I saw a lot of support, a lot of love. Outpost Grace sending her squad over. Definitely, genuinely appreciate that. You guys, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. Go check out Intezer's product as soon as I update that show description and get the link in there for you to add to your toolbox of tools to help you defend your organization. Until next time, stay secure.